Okay, so I'm going to keep my word and get you out of here by 8:15. That's the goal. And my goal tonight is to go over a few things. First, we're going to sort of reiterate things that we already probably know, but we have a lot of new lectors. I think there's maybe a couple few here in the past year, but I want to make sure that we're re-emphasizing things that are important, things that have been given to me from the worship committee, and make sure we're doing those. And then we're going to spend most of our time tonight on proclaiming the word. And then we may, hopefully we have time. I want to get 2 or 3 of you volunteers to go up and we can do like we did last December in our classroom downstairs with Brother Philip, who came in from Florida, and maybe do a little bit of practice and discernment with each other. Okay? Great. And just raise your hand if you have any questions, but if it seems like they're taking a little longer, need more personal addressing, then I may let you know, and we can talk about it afterward if necessary. So for those that don't know me, I'm Mark Saloom. I've been a member here at the parish for about, I think, 8 years officially, even though we've been coming on and off for about 18. I was a lector at St. Colette for about 20 years, and I've been a lector here now for about 6. So that is my tenure as a lector. We're going to talk now real quick about the process as we come in. Again, most of you know this, but I'd rather make sure that we're re-emphasizing this, and again, we're recording it for those that are not here tonight. First and foremost, I want to make sure that everybody reminds themselves to be here 15 minutes in advance. That is not only for your own sake, but also for the sake of your lector partner. I think it's very important. I know that when I'm scheduled to read or proclaim, I'd like to know that my lector partner is there, and if they're not here by 10 to the hour, then I know I've got to be prepared to read that additional reading. So I think it's good to be there for not only yourself to practice from the read lectionary, but also to be prepared in case you need to take on that additional reading. And I want to emphasize that especially because I think it's been happening a little more than we might be accustomed to. I might be wrong, but I know at some of the masses that I've been attending in the last couple of months, I've noticed the same lector going up for both readings. And that's not a problem, but obviously we'll talk a little bit about that later as to how we might address subbing and things of that nature. So if your partner isn't there, of course, as I mentioned, prepare both readings in advance. We're going to talk a little bit more about preparation for your own reading, but if you at least spend 5 to 10 minutes on that additional reading at home, it'll at least give you some familiarity. Some of us, I know I've lectured and I've read so many times all these readings. I know I could probably go up there and nail a reading down, but it's still helpful even for me to go through that reading in advance. So again, just for your own sake, I think it's worth doing that. So when we're back there, again, we've changed in the past year, since last year when we met, that Lector 1 now will be, of course, the person who does the intentions, the prayer intentions, and Lector 2, and that's always been the case, but now Lector 2, as we know, is walking up with the book. Please keep in mind as well that if your lector partner is unable to process, be there for them. Make sure you offer to carry the book up if it looks like they're maybe unable to do that. And if you find that both of you are unable, I'm not sure what we could do, but hopefully that's not the case. The auto schedule doesn't recognize that, but certainly be there for each other when you can. And let's see here. So when you're back there, typically what I do is I like to practice, reading from the lectionary. And I think it's a good idea for Lector 1 to bring the book out to the pulpit because they're the first person reading. They can set the stage for themselves with the microphone, the book. I've even figured out ways to manipulate that microphone around the book in such a fashion that I can slide the book over under it. It used to be blocking it, but now I've got it so it's coming around. So if you haven't had a chance to do that, feel free to spend an extra minute or two at some point, whether it's tonight or on your next session, to play with the microphone and make sure it works. I know personally, the microphone is kind of like this, and if my reading's over here, it's kind of hard to get it into the microphone. So that's why it's good to have it centered in front of you and underneath the microphone. Okay, so Lector 2, of course, walks in with the book. If there is no deacon, of course, we know how to put the gospel book up on the altar. We want to have the spine in your left hand as you're processing up. Hold it to wherever you're comfortable, whether it's above your eyes or below them. Make sure you can see. And one thing I do is I try to talk in advance to the altar servers to let them know that it's not a race. And I'll do it in a joking way. I don't want them to feel like I'm condescending them or anything, but hey guys, it's not a race. Let's just make sure we just kind of pace it off, at a nice pace. And also there are some priests who don't move as fast either, but it might be a good idea to just mention that to them, because I've sometimes seen the servers just flying up there, and I'm walking at a pace where I feel like the priest might feel comfortable. So I do that personally, but not necessary, but you certainly have the right to do so. Let's see. All right, next. So when you... I've got something here from Tom Oram, who's been overseeing the worship committee the last year, and he wanted me to make sure I reminded everybody the direction. I think he said that pretty much all the lectors, and he's here certainly at all the masses, but I think he's pretty comfortable that most, if not all, the lectors are doing what we should be when we're coming up, which is, and I'm not talking about when we're carrying the book up, but when we're coming up for reading, whether it's from there, here, or over there, we want to come to the center of the altar, bow here, and then walk over to the point where we can almost touch this. He says if you can't touch it or get close to it, then you're not close enough. So certainly we want to avoid going between the altar and the pulpit, which Father John did not mind in the old sanctuary, but at this point we are not doing that any longer. So as a reminder, go to the steps. You don't have to hold on to them, or you don't have to go onto the other side, but just get over there and walk up. And of course, try to, yes? No. Well, I'll tell you, for the intentions, I don't think it's as necessary. I think, and I personally haven't been doing that. It's not mentioned in his document. I'll confirm that. If what I'm saying is good, which means that you do not need to go to the center for the intentions, then you will not hear from me. Otherwise, I will let you know. Yes, Jeff? Sure. So the question was, during the intentions, should we go to the center, or can we go up based on where we're located? I would say, obviously, if you're coming up the center there, you might as well do that. If I'm coming up here, I might come a little bit towards center, but maybe not quite dead center. Okay? Certainly, thank you. So the reminder by Pete is that it's always a bow or a genuflect at the altar, okay, no matter where you're at. But again, reading 1 or 2, you're going to come here, and if you're Lector 1, when you come down, I think we all know that, but we come down, we meet the cantor at the center. Sometimes if I see they're still way back over there, I'm going to time it so that I'm walking at a pace and I can meet them at the center. Otherwise, you might be standing there for 5 or 10 seconds. So whatever you're comfortable with, no reason to really spend too much time on that. And if you're Lector 2, time it as well so that you're coming up and meeting the person at that same time and then going up and around. When you are complete with that second reading, I would still encourage you to come to the center before you go back to your seat for the reading. Okay? So let's make sure we're doing that. Now, after Lector 1 is done reading that first reading, I would encourage you, if you can, to flip the page if there's a page to be flipped for Lector 2. Not necessary, but certainly a little helpful for them when they get up there. Let's see here. Oh, the other thing is, when you are doing intentions, it is really, really important. Well, 2 things. So let's first say this. If you are doing intentions, we need to get, I think some of you are waiting too long to come up. We need you to come up a little bit sooner. We don't want a 15, 20, 30-second gap between the priest acknowledging that we're about to go into intentions. So start walking and be at least at the base of the altar, if not already at the pulpit. That would be the ideal spot, to be at the pulpit by the time he is ready for you to begin reading, okay? Yes. And your question was just, do we have something in writing with regards to the duties for each person? I'll put something together just as a kind of a refresher. Give me a week or two, maybe a week. Yeah, the only cheat sheet I have is what Tom prepared in terms of positioning, where you walk up. Yeah, and we are supposed to. So if you are reading at the noon Mass So let me say this, the Saturday 4 p.m., the Sunday noon Mass, or the Sunday 5 p.m. Mass, then Lector 1 is responsible for taking the books to the working sacristy, okay? So you'll take them into that room over there, okay? If you're at the other Masses, 8 a.m. or 10 a.m., you can leave them on the table in the back here. And when Father John was here, and I asked him the question as well, and he said something like that, but he also said, I don't care, which was surprising, but I think he wasn't terribly worried, maybe because he was leaving too, who knows. But anyway, the question or the discussion was about the book of the Gospels. So after the 8 and the 10 a.m., you can leave the book of the Gospels at the front of the pulpit, standing up here, okay? So that's what's in discussion. It can be there. If it goes back, that's okay too, okay? We're not going to say that there's a right or a wrong there. So yeah, when you're done reading with the lectionary, if you're Lector 2, then that book just goes in the ambo underneath. They're not deep, so you're going to probably have to turn that book sideways. The old lectern was deeper, but this is not. So you'll turn it sideways and put it underneath. That's right. So we stand the book of the Gospel up as opposed to, we lay it down instead of standing it up. Yes, on the altar, yeah. And it should hang off the edge a little bit, just a few inches, so that the priest or deacon can grab it, raise it, and walk. Okay, again, so if I'm walking up with this, the book, the spine is in my left hand. I typically walk with it just below my eyes. And when I get here, you're not supposed to bow, okay? But you can, if you do, nobody's going to object to it, okay? You're just supposed to walk straight up, lay the book down. There's a cross here, and sometimes that will be there, so just put it to the side. And now I bow, and then I turn and look and make sure I don't run into a priest, okay? So that is basically what you're supposed to do. And then when you get down here, I would recommend as well another genuflect or a bow again, okay? Again, I hate to say there's a real right or wrong, and we're all going to do slightly different things in some of what we do, but we want consistency in some of these things, particularly the way we take the book up and place it down. We might do slightly different things, again, with the genuflect versus the bow. When you come back down again, I recommend another genuflect or bow, but it's not critical. Well, when you say to the left, are you saying towards the stairs? Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't come down the middle, so thank you for pointing that out. I don't think I ever do come straight down the middle, so thank you. So that was the question. When you do come down after placing the book of the Gospels down, should you come off to the left? I would say, yeah, come off center a little bit for sure, but it is not critical that you go to the steps like we do after a reading. And here's the point. So the question was about, not even a question, just a point that Father Anthony pushed the book of the Gospels flush. Priests are going to be different, okay? So I'm not going to worry too much. Could I spend time emailing them, talking to them, figuring this out, and making sure we're consistent? Yes, but it's not critical. Just kind of follow what I'm suggesting based on history, and it'll all work out. If somebody has an objection to what we're doing, they'll let me know, and I'll communicate it with you. Al was suggesting if you want to ask the priest where he prefers to have the book of the Gospels, or the deacon. If there's a deacon, typically they're the one who will be doing the reading of the Gospel, yes. When you're back there waiting to walk up with the book, certainly it's a great thing to turn to the priest and ask what prayer intentions he has, and I'm sure they will do the same. I would say that they almost, I just always turn to look at them, and we're always exchanging prayer intentions at that point. So thank you. So she was asking Father Michael, he'll have a long pause up here before a Mass, even after a Mass too. I know we don't process out or recess out, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. If there's an issue, I think he'll let us know. Whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to stand next to him and wait for him to bow, that's fine. We're not asked to do that. So whatever you're comfortable with. Yeah, so again, the point is, whether or not Father Michael wants us to, if he's waiting for us to come up or come down and bow with him, if it looks like that's a situation that you feel more comfortable and that maybe he wants, or you can ask him beforehand, feel free. Again, every priest is different. We're going to have visiting priests. We're going to have all kinds of different things happening here. I don't want to get stuck on things like that. I appreciate the questions for sure, but I don't want to overcomplicate something like that either. Okay? All right, great. So let's move on if we could. All right. So after the intentions, I brought up when to go up for the intentions. When you are done, please, because I've seen at least 2 times in the last month or two where the lector will walk down immediately following the last prayer intention. You must stay up there while the priest is doing the blessing. So after the final intention, just turn towards the priest and listen for the blessing or the prayer. And you can bow after if you'd like, but otherwise when he's done and everybody's being seated, that is when you can come down and bow and take your seat, okay? Again, you don't need to probably come quite to center, but, maybe working your way towards the center a little bit. There's other things going on at that point, and nobody's really paying attention to you anyway, so you can move on. Okay, again, at the conclusion of Mass, Lector 1 should be the person taking those back, but sometimes I have to leave early, and I'm Lector 1. Hey, Lector 2, would you mind taking the books back? I got to leave here as quick as possible. My daughter's dancing or something. So if there are situations like that, just, speak to your partner. And the other thing, too, is I know I tried having a designated area in the past, and it never, ever seems to work, and the signs disappear over and over. So we're not going to try that again, because I know it's not going to work. But my suggestion is just do everything you can to stay closer to the front, at least in the front half, especially if you're on a side. I would not sit over there. Certainly over here is fine, but I wouldn't go beyond half back in the pew section. And over there, I would probably avoid being over there altogether if you can. So maybe 3, 4, 5 rows back. Same thing over here. That way you're not trying to figure out the timing pattern and all that stuff, okay? Okay. Any other questions before we move on? Good. Okay. So we're going to go now into the main portion of what I want to talk about, which is proclaiming the word, okay? And some of this may seem a little bit redundant, but, I want to try to spend maybe 15, 20 minutes on this, and we'll try to get, like I say, a couple of you up there to do some practice readings. I have a sample one that I'm going to do in the middle of this as well, which reflects a couple of the topics I want to discuss. So one of the things I want to make sure that you understand is that you are professing God's word. And, I look at it as an honor and a privilege to be here doing this for my Lord. I really do. And I hope all of you do as well. We're chosen. You were chosen, whether it was in a prayer or in some other form of communication between you and God. He let you know that he wanted you here doing this. And you should take that very seriously because it really is an honor. From Isaiah 50, chapter 50, he says, "The Lord God has given me a well-trained tongue that I may know how to speak to the weary a word that will rouse them." And that really is our mission, is we are here to rouse the ears and the hearts of those in our congregation. I hear people tell me a lot that they love to hear me read, but I don't really care. And I don't mean that in a mean way. I know that the Holy Spirit is in me when I'm reading, and I take it to heart that, God is using me as an instrument. So I'm hoping that you can look for that type of compliment too, because it means that God is working through you to spread his word to his people, okay? So we're all different. We have different methods of speaking. I get that. But I want to make sure that we just, try to follow some basic things that I want to go over. One thing I always do is I always pray before I read. So as I'm in the pew, whether it's before reading 1 or 2, I'm praying again. Just, hey, Lord, fill my heart, my lips, and my tongue so that I can speak a word that will rouse them. I quote that, maybe not verbatim, but I quote that quite a bit before I go up in my heart and my mind. So I recommend one thing is, pull out your workbook at least one day before you read and, read it a couple times. Don't try to discern everything. Just read it and see if it's speaking to you right away. Of course, some are a little bit tougher than others, and some are very simple, some are story-based, some are poetic, and it just depends. But the point is, I just start by practicing once or twice, maybe 3 times a day or 2 before, so that I can at least have an idea in my head as to what I'm doing. If you're an 8 a.m. reader, you might consider starting on Friday. But I'm usually 10 and noon, so I might do it on Saturday a few times for 10 minutes, and then Sunday morning I spend 30 to 40 minutes minimum, preparing. But anyway, one of the main things to do as well, as you probably already do, is read the preface at the bottom of the page that helps you understand the meaning of the reading or the proclamation. Without that, and the sample I'm going to give you too, it was critical for me. A few weeks ago when I read, I was thinking, as I read it the first 2 or 3 times, yeah, I kind of get it, but why is he saying that? And then once I read that story at the bottom, or the discernment, it really helped me understand, oh, now I get it, and now I understand how I should approach this. Okay, so very, very helpful information down at the bottom of that page if you're not taking advantage of it. So on the day of, I start to, read it more thoroughly. Of course, I might read it in my head a few times, and then I start reading it out loud. I probably read it, I would say, at least 15 times, maybe 20 plus times. I want to make sure I'm looking at the side of the page so I understand the pause points that they're mentioning, the areas or the times maybe where you might have to bring your voice up or down or change your tone or inflection of your voice. So I trust you're all doing that, but again, as a reiteration, I'd rather readdress these points and bring them out. Some readings are 1 sentence long and others are very short with very quick, phrases, blessed be the meek, blessed be the poor in spirit, etc. Those are just very brief and short, so, they have a pattern, more like poetry than other story-driven ones. Okay, so now we're going to quickly go over the 3 P's, as I call them. It's pacing, perspective, and passion. Okay, so the pacing, most of us, I think, are pretty good at pacing. Let's see, we're good on time. We're pretty good at pacing, but occasionally I'll hear somebody reading a little bit fast. So I want to just kind of reemphasize to, read as if you're telling a story most of the time. Again, sometimes you're reading more like it's poetry, but a lot of times they are more like a story, and you want to read it that way. Pretend that, the congregation is a group of, maybe kids at a campfire, and you're trying to really engage their interest as much as possible. So that's a really good point to kind of put in your mind. And then the pause points are extremely important. I'm going to go over, as I mentioned, an example here in a few minutes. But, seeing a colon versus a semicolon versus a comma versus a period or nothing at all. Again, sometimes these long sentences have nothing. You have to figure that out. And by understanding the story and sometimes having to read it over and over and over, it'll help you understand that a little bit better. But the pause points can make a huge impact on the way you read. And again, I really do believe that all of you do a fantastic job, but we're here once a year to kind of do this and readdress these topics. So thank you for tolerating me, and thank you all for being a part of this. I forgot to thank you. Okay. And of course, improper pausing can completely change the context of a reading, and I have heard that many times, unfortunately. So again, those pause points are really important, and that's why practicing over and over and over until I get to the point when I'm practicing where I almost have the reading memorized. I almost don't need the book, but I use that book as a guide, and it helps me remember my bold words, the things that I want to emphasize. But hopefully you've read it enough aloud at home or wherever it is that you practice to the point where you feel that the congregation is going to be truly engaged and inspired with the way you're professing. Okay. All right, next is perspective. Think about whose perspective the reading is from. Is it a narrator? Is it St. Paul? We know a lot of our New Testament is written by St. Paul or somebody else, a lot of these letters. Does it change in the middle of a reading? And if it does change in the perspective, who's speaking? And, are you pausing properly and changing your voice maybe a little? I really encourage to change your voice a little. I mean, just because God is speaking, it doesn't mean you have to have a big tenor voice. God spoke, there was man. Okay, but, change it enough to where people realize that you are speaking on behalf of God at that point, okay? I'm going to go up now, and I'm going to do one of the readings. And the reading that I'm going to do here was the one that I did on, October 13th. This is one, it was a story about Naaman, and he was I think he was like a main servant for a king, who was it, King Aram? Aram. And he had leprosy, but Elisha wanted to cure him. So his servants encouraged him. He did not want to be plunged and baptized, but they encouraged him to be baptized and to be plunged 7 times into the water. Well, after that happened, his leprosy was cured, and he became, devoted to the God of Israel. Now, I read that reading prior to reading that. As I mentioned, that's what I typically do. And I thought, okay, I'm kind of getting it. But when I read that, now I thought, oh my gosh, the heart this man must have right now for being not only cured of a lifelong disease, but also curing his heart and his soul to the Lord, right? So it just changed my whole perspective on how I saw this. So I'm reading it because I want you to understand how it changed my way of perceiving the reading, and then also how I look at the different people speaking. So it had a little bit of the different things that I've been talking about today. Mind you, too, when you're reading, have a little pause and give eye contact to your congregation after you read a reading from the book of, okay? That way you're grabbing their attention. Here we go. A reading from the 2nd book of Kings. Naaman went down and plunged into the Jordan 7 times at the word of Elisha, the man of God. His flesh became again like the flesh of a little child, and he was clean of his leprosy. Naaman returned with his whole retinue to the man of God. On his arrival, he stood before Elisha and said, "Now I know that there is no God in all the earth except in Israel. Please accept a gift from your servant." Elisha replied, "As the Lord lives whom I serve, I will not take it." And despite Naaman's urging, he still refused. Naaman said, "If you will not accept, please let me, your servant, have 2 mule loads of earth, for I will no longer offer holocaust or sacrifice to any other god except to the Lord." The word of the Lord. Okay. So again, as I mentioned, and let me come back down. We're all going to have slightly different ways in the way we profess, but what I wanted to emphasize in that reading is how the pause points came about to open up the different narratives that were about to occur, and also to transition from the narration to the actual speaking by the different individuals, which there were 2 in that particular reading. And as I mentioned, the word rejected stands out in my head, because when I first read it, before I read the bottom part of the page, I just thought like rejected. But then I realized it was just rejected. He wasn't being mean, he wasn't being rude or anything like that. He was doing it on behalf of God, and therefore he just rejected it. And now Naaman was looking for something else. Well, at least on behalf of your servant, let me do this. So, beautiful reading, but it meant a whole lot more to me after I was able to read the discernment on the bottom of the page and read it over and over and really grasp it in my heart. Okay? All right, very good. So, again, that was an example with 3 point of views, the narrator's point of view, Elisha and Naaman as well. Okay, the final one is passion. Read with passion. Articulation and clarity of the message. Again, I think we all know that, but just to kind of emphasize, we're not really reading, we are really proclaiming, but we also don't want to overkill it. I hope what I did there did not feel like overkill to any of you. I don't think it was. I think that we want people to feel engaged through that story, through the hearts of the people that we're reading about. So feel free, feel open to be able to profess in that manner, okay? But don't get dramatic either. We don't need to be dramatic, and I don't really see that much anymore, but maybe once in a blue moon I will see it. So just avoid the drama, but make it impactful, okay? And honestly, I always say, if you ask God, again, to fill you with the Holy Spirit before you go up there, He'll bless you, and He'll make sure that you're professing in the way He needs you to, okay? Now, obviously, I didn't do much eye contact there. It was 3 weeks ago I read that, but, as much as I practice it, if it was still sort of in my head and I just practiced it 20 times, I would have been able to give a lot more eye contact. It is not necessary, I will say that. If you feel like you can proclaim better by keeping your eyes glazed on the page, feel free. I would minimally say at least give them eye contact in the beginning and at the end. And if you can do it in the midst of it, it is better. I'm not going to deny that, but it's not necessary either, okay? Yep. If you hadn't heard, Carolyn said that Father John actually said, don't look up. I can't say I remember that, but I believe it. It sounds like something he would say. So all these little comments, and great comments, please, I don't mean that in a negative way, are all reflective of the fact that Father John, and even though he's not here, obviously we can still abide by the things that he recommends, and that is to just keep your eyes on the page. I've been doing eye contact for so long, I'll probably continue it somewhat, but I don't think there's anything wrong either way. So whatever you're comfortable with, that's fine. But he does have a great point. It's not about you and the congregation. We are a tool and an instrument to profess God's word, and that's it. Okay. So let's see here. So the last thing's about the passion. Oh, yeah, just the eye contact I talked about. And then the microphone. I think we're all pretty comfortable with the microphone. It's a cardioid. So as long as it's just a few inches from your mouth, you're in good shape. But I have seen it sometimes be too high, maybe too low. It's probably better to be lower than high, if anything. Okay? All right. So the last couple things we're going to go over before we do some practice readings. Let's see here. Oh, that's right. Here we go. All right, a couple of topics and notes. So we're still, I think, on occasion getting no-shows, I believe. I know that, again, as long as we have one person here, we're good. If there's one lector, I'm okay with that. But if we have zero, have any of you been in a situation in the last 6 months or a year where there's been nobody? A couple, few, huh? Okay. What is that usually, 8 a.m. or 5 p.m.? And I take the blame for this past Friday. I'm not always on the lookout, and the worship committee, we're meeting next week. We used to meet every month, and we would go over these things every month. And now, because I'm not on top of that, and I'm running 2 businesses, and I don't think about it, the day comes, and I'm like, oh, yes. One of you, I think, emailed me, was it Mary Lynn? Okay, saying, is there somebody here for Friday at 7 p.m.? And I think I said, yeah, can you do it? But then I think Al filled in, right? Thank you. So I have to do a little bit better job, but hopefully we do have a new worship committee chairperson, and not to say Tom didn't do a good job, he did a great job, but this person now is going to be dedicated to overseeing the ministries and making sure that the communication occurs between everybody with the different masses and things like that. So hopefully that won't happen anymore. So here's what we're going to start doing, I think. She was asking about the masses for Advent and Lent. So what I'm going to probably do is send out an email and say, who's interested in reading? Okay, and then we're going to figure out how we're going to pattern that out. Because if I have 20 people wanting to read at one Mass, I've got to figure out the best way to make those decisions. So I think certainly we Father John, I think, was a part of that. he had what he called, I think, his A-team, and he would give me a list and say, these are the folks I would like to, maybe have read. But, I think I understood a little bit about why he was doing that. So what we want to be able to do here is still make sure that we have a really solid team out there. So if you are interested, I will send an email. Please let me know, and we will make sure that we can get as many people involved in those as possible. Okay? So the question was, how do we know if there's a different reading, which one will be used by the priest, and we don't. It used to be I would bug them like crazy with emails, and they'd say, just chill out, Mark, we may change our mind at the last minute, and that happens, especially when you got 4 choices for Christmas. There's 4 or 5 readings, like daytime, the 4 p.m., the midnight mass, the morning mass, the daytime mass. They can choose whichever one they want. So I would just say, if we can find, when there's multiple like that, and we can find out, I'm certainly going to let you know. But if we don't, on feast days when there's 2, just maybe prepare for both. And, let's face it, there may be times you're going to be asked to read, and you have no prep. I read at daily mass about every 2 or 3 weeks, and I don't practice it whatsoever. I don't even look at it. I just go up there. And because I've done it long enough, I'm fine with it. So you may be in situations like that too, where you just need to be able to go up there and do what you have to do. Okay? All right, so the last couple things, and then we'll do a couple. So think about it if you want to be a guinea pig to go up there. We're going to need somebody soon. So regarding the subs, though, what I ask of you is to simply just make sure that you request a sub, hopefully at least 3 to 4 days in advance. But your job is just to send out a sub request. You don't have to email me and say, hey, I sent a sub and nobody's accepted. What do I do? Don't worry about it. You've done what you have to do. Your lector partner will be there if for some reason nobody accepts it. I can't ask you to do anything more than that. Okay? If you want to partner up with a couple, 3 other lectors, feel free to do that. And maybe you guys can be buddies and do stuff like that. But you don't have to worry about it, and you don't have to, email me to let me know. Okay? Great. Last couple things here. The software. Okay. I'm really going to push this. Please make sure that you are responsible for your own updates. People are sending me emails, hey, Mark, take me off the schedule, or can you change this or that? That's not my duty. That's all on you folks. Please just take care of your own updates. If I had to manage 75 people, it would be a lot of extra work, and I just don't have that kind of time. So it's very, very simple. If you need a refresher course or video on the software, let me know, and I'll send you the video again, okay? It's very, very simple to use. And let's see here. Oh, and lastly, if you like to take on substitute roles, check the software on a regular basis. Go in there Thursday or Friday and see if there's any roles that need to be filled, because there often are, okay? Okay, great. So anybody willing to kind of come up here? Ken?
A reading from the book of the prophet Isaiah. The Lord said to me, you are my servant, Israel, through whom I show my glory. Now the Lord has spoken, who formed me as his servant from the womb, that Jacob may be brought back to him, and Israel gathered to him. And I am made glorious in the sight of the Lord, and my God is now my strength. It is too little, the Lord says, for you to be my servant, to raise up the tribes of Jacob and restore the survivors of Israel. I will make you a light to the nations, that my salvation may reach out to the ends of the earth. The word of the Lord.
Any feedback or? Yes. Pacing is perfect. Right. So he finishes well, pacing's well, everything. And, that is a really great point to bring up too, Matt, the fact that we end sentences or we end thoughts articulately, clearly, and without dipping. Most of you, I think, maybe many of you know, I'm a video producer, and I have to direct voice talents and on-screen talents. And when I do, I find that they're perfect at that. But if I ask somebody who's not a pro, their voice dips at the end. They dip. So really important and great point to bring up, and great job on that too. Other thoughts for Ken?
It's something as simple as, thank you for this opportunity, Lord, and I pray that you allow me to get out of the way of this reading and proclaim it in a way that people understand your message, that I don't get in the way of it in any manner. And that's just before I went up there just now, that was the prayer. And that's what we got to do, is get out of the way of it. And to over-dramatize it, you get in the way of it. It's not to call attention to ourselves, as you said, but rather to make sure that people get the message. And if you ask God to guide you with that, He will.
And one thing too, I don't know if I brought this up, but and some priests actually have a habit of doing this too. They're very quick at saying the gospel of the Lord or the word of the Lord. So have a nice pause between the last word, and you might even count to two, So you finish the reading and the word of the Lord. So give that nice little pause point between the final phrase or word and that phrase. Okay, who's next?
A reading from a letter of St. Paul to the Thessalonians. Brothers and sisters, may our Lord Jesus Christ Himself and God our Father, who has loved us and given us everlasting encouragement and good hope through His grace, encourage your hearts and strengthen them in every good deed and word. Finally, brothers and sisters, pray for us so that the word of the Lord may speed forth and be glorified as it did among you, and that we may be delivered from perverse and wicked people, for not all have faith. But the Lord is faithful. He will strengthen you and guard you from the evil one. We are confident of you in the Lord, that what we instruct you, you are doing and will continue to do. May the Lord direct your hearts to the love of God and to the endurance of Christ. The word of the Lord.
Yeah. If you pay attention to Father Michael, he is very invested in his readings of the gospel. He really changes his tone, his inflection, and his voice pattern depending on who the point of view is, and if there's an exclamation point, man, you know it when he's reading. So it's really good. Yes.
Imagine the Lord is speaking those words to me that I'm getting ready to proclaim. What does His voice sound to me? Sometimes it's a little bit, you need to get on task. Sometimes it's loving. Sometimes it's urgent. So hopefully it comes across that that's how I hear He would say those words to me. So if I can say them, right, He's still saying it to you, but it's through me. So.
A reading from the letter of St. Paul to the Galatians. Brothers and sisters, may I never boast except in the cross of our Lord Jesus Christ, through which the world has been crucified to me and I to the world. For neither does circumcision mean anything, nor does uncircumcision, but only a new creation. Peace and mercy be to all who follow this rule and to the Israel of God. From now on, let no one make troubles for me, for I bear the marks of Jesus on my body. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with your spirit, brothers and sisters. Amen. The word of the Lord.
Yeah, so Ken is saying he's just very passionate. He could feel it. Just we want to make sure we keep that volume to a level, especially on some of those softer feel reads, which I think this is. So again, if you feel that need to just bump up your volume a little bit, feel free to do that, okay? Or make sure, too, that microphone might be a little bit more directional. It will help. Poetic grace, yeah. Yep, I agree. That's where I felt like I was listening to a mother reading a Bible story there. Yeah, I did. So again, I think those three things, if we kind of render them in our minds here a little bit about pacing, perspective, and passion, the 3 Ps, it will help you. Again, I think you're all exceptional. I don't get to see all of you on a regular basis because I'm primarily at 10, 12, and sometimes 4 on a Saturday. But again, I'm just very grateful and blessed to know that you're all a part of the ministry here, and I am humbled to be in this ministry with all of you, truly. Okay, so let's close in prayer, please. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Heavenly Father, thank you so much for this chance to be together, to be able to really just listen to your word. And thank you for having all these beautiful folks here in our presence. And thank you for sharing your love for us, your wisdom, and for giving us the ability to come up here and proclaim your word, Lord, because we know all that we do is on your behalf, and all that we do has been given to us through from you, our abilities and everything we do. So we love you, Lord. We love you, Lord, and we thank you and praise you. Send everyone home tonight safely, and have a blessed night. Amen.